Hello, friends. Hello, friends. A tradition unlike any other.
Oh, my goodness. In your life, have you seen anything like that?
There it is! Adam Scott, a life changer. Mashed potato!
Here it comes.
Our friends at Cobra have introduced the new King LTDX irons designed to deliver next level distance and forgiveness. Available in both variable and one length offerings, the LTDX irons combine an intelligent power core weighting design with a thinner and larger power shell face, creating a superior choice for the perfect blend of forgiveness, high launch, excellent feel, and longest total distance, which is what we're all about. For more information on the LTDX family of products, visit cobragolf.com.au or drop into your nearest golf shop. Is this where I talk into, Druids? Welcome back to the 19th Tee podcast. Kieran Marsh, Nathan Drudy, back with you. I won't say for another week because it's been some time. It's been many, many weeks since we've been back together. How are you, my friend?
I'm very well. It's good to be sitting virtually across the ditch again from you. It's been a while since you've been on home soil, so it's nice to have you back in Australia after your work travels and excitement that you got to experience over there. But welcome back to the 19th Tee, mate. Very good.
Thank you, mate. It's fantastic to be back. Off the top, let me say a very big thank you to you for your continued stewardship. Some sensational episodes again in my absence. I also want to say thanks to obviously the guests that joined you, whether they were guests proper or fill-in co-hosts. One thing I always think about, and it's given me pause for thought because I've had a few trips this year and I've had a few lengthy absences. I often get they're awesome, and I love to see the people that you get on in my absence, but I get a little tinge of sadness because I kind of feel like I may never talk to someone like Garby again. Because we had the one chat with Garby, and now Garby only ever comes on when I'm not here. And it's like I really enjoyed chatting with Garby, and I enjoy listening to you chat with Garby. And I don't know. I get a tinge of sadness that maybe Garby and I will just never cross paths again. Maybe it's not meant to be.
Well, maybe, but I mean, look, I'm going to be away for a week at the end of September. Obviously, we've got the wedding next year, so I mean, there'll be some time off around that, no doubt, because you'll obviously be here, and then we might be on a honeymoon for a few weeks, mate. So here's the opportunity. I think that's what they call empowering people.
I should probably start planning now.
Well, maybe you need to download the editing program. That might be the first port of call.
Probably, yeah. We could just podcast might go on a few weeks off. Podcast might also go on a honeymoon with you. Now, before we go any further, Druids, I must admit, I had my quarterly kid on Christmas morning moment this week, and when I got the knock on the door. Amongst my favourite deliveries that I get throughout the year is the re-up from our great friends at Gage Roads. And I'm a little bit giddy tonight because I know you haven't got yours yet. So yes. I have got the jump, and I don't necessarily think that's a reflection of who they think is the most valuable customer or member of this podcast. I think it's probably just distribution channels, East Coast, West Coast, all that sort of jazz, even though they're a West Coast-based brewery. And it was wonderful. And so I'm cracking open tonight, and I'm very excited about this because this is a beer they launched a little while ago now that I've had my eye on for some time, and was thrilled when it came as part of the Lucky Dip show bag of beers that they sent, and that is the Yeah Boy, the appropriately named Yeah Boy, the non-alcoholic option. So it's a non-alcoholic XPA, which I had a couple the other night watching the Mighty D's put themselves back in the winner's circle. And it's every part the XPA with no part alcohol. It's excellent.
It is a top-notch beer.
Big shout out to our good friends at Gage Roads, of course, WA's premier craft brewery, named after the strip of ocean between Rottnest and Fremantle. And a big thanks to the team for the delivery as I tuck into it. Yeah, boy. That's a really roundabout way of getting to the fact, Druids, that Will Zalatoris has cracked through for his first ever PGA Tour victory, and he does it in timely fashion, albeit after arguably the most entertaining hour of golf across a 4-hole playoff, I believe it was, this morning. 3-hole playoff against Seb Straka. There you go. Cracking start, continuing with the accuracy that has become so synonymous with my appearances on this podcast. Will Zalatoris, a maiden tour winner. I don't know about you, but I feel like this has been coming for a while. This is a player that's been threatening, and I almost had to kind of double take to realise, no, in fact, he hadn't yet registered a victory.
I mean, you're absolutely right, and it's not unsurprising that it has come now. I mean, his major record is incredible. We obviously know that, but that little stretch throughout the middle of the year, I know he missed the cut twice at the Charles Schwab and the AT&T Byron Nelson, but this stretch here really sort of indicated his talent. He finished T5 at the WGC Match Play, T6 at the Masters, T4 at the Zurich, second at the PGA Championship. We forget that he was so close there. And then, of course, T5 at the Memorial and T2 at the US Open, just losing out to Matty Fitz. So that run of form was phenomenal, and there was no doubt that he was absolutely going to win. And yeah, I mean, I've said on record before, I'm not Will Zalatoris' biggest fan. I don't know. I just don't get the vibe. To use a great Castle quote, I don't get the vibe from Will Zalatoris, but you can't deny that he's an incredible talent, and his his putting still makes me nervous. But geez, he somehow manages to drain him. Ever since that infamous clip came out last year, I think it was at the Open Championship where he missed that sort of 2-3 footer. It was violence watching, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. That's a very good way of putting it. A figure of eight. Ever since there, his putter seems to have picked up a little bit. So yeah, not unsurprising to see him win in relatively dramatic fashion as well.
And that was the difference, wasn't it? Was dropping putts, plain and simple. I mean, the question's probably also never really been about, I suppose, the mid to longer range putts. It's seemingly like inside 6 feet, which causes him the most amount of trouble. He was dropping those as he was dropping. I mean, some really critical putts coming home, particularly on the 72nd hole, which invoked quite an emotional reaction from him to secure the playoff. But that was the difference. I mean, this is a guy who, it seems remarkable, right? Because I distinctly remember kind of would have been 18 months ago now, the real emergence of Morikawa and us. Mainly probably myself saying, is he the best iron player since Tiger Woods? And almost 6 months later, you had the emergence of, albeit a mature age graduate at 24 years of age, who is almost his equal, I would suggest, with the irons in hand. Like, he does not miss Zalatoris. And that was the case. He had a shaky start on Thursday, but I think 63 Friday, 65 Saturday, and I think he came home in a 66 or 67 today. So he wasn't put himself in the fairway, and he was absolutely dialed with the irons. So dropping the putts was always going to be the case. And we say that about a few people. Like, I feel like we say that about Justin Thomas. When Justin Thomas putts well, not many people get near him. And Zalatoris, I think, is certainly entering that conversation given the roundedness of the remainder of his game.
Yeah, look, I think it's worth putting it into perspective. So he's 103rd on tour for putting at strokes gained, 0.012. This week, he gained 0.6. So he was almost 6 times, or he was 6 times better than what he normally delivers. And that he was ranked 25th in the field. But as you mentioned, his strokes gained approach, he led the field in strokes gained approach at plus 2.03. The next best was Joaquin Niemann at plus 1.5. So he was miles ahead in terms of approaching the green. And that's where he leads the tour. So he is a little bit like Colin Morikawa. That is a very good comparison to make, that when he does putt well for himself, the stats, he may not ever lead the strokes gained putting stat week to week, but when he can putt above his average, he's certainly going to put himself in the right position for winning tournaments, because the rest of his game is so strong. So yeah, it's he was quite emotional at the end in terms of not the teary emotional, but I don't know. What did he say when he sunk that putt? He said, "What are you going to say about me now?" or something.
What are they going to say now?
What a flog. Shut up. It's your first win. I don't know.
And I've heard it said on a variety of different platforms today, but valid question. What were they saying before?
Yeah,
because I
said that you were fucking shit at putting. That's what they said.
I think it's been nothing but encouraging and complimentary of Will Zalatoris, save for inside 6 feet.
Yeah.
People have lauded the fact that he is a multiple runner-up, has had an incredible beginning to his career, particularly in the most important tournaments on the calendar, and it was just a matter of time. So I'm not entirely certain what they were saying before that they would change the tune. To be fair, it just feels like this was a fait accompli of a path that he was already on.
Yeah, well, maybe he's tuned into an episode where we've sort of said, well, where I've said, I'm not his biggest fan. Maybe it was directed at the 19th Tee podcast. Not sure. So
I don't think you haven't been Robinson Crusoe on Will Zalatoris Can't Putt Island.
No, that's exactly right.
And I think that more often than not, he may be one of those players that require, people create a siege mentality. They create. The perception of a chip on their shoulder and people against them. But yeah, I did find that strange. Like the emotion and the release of emotion would have been one thing, but to specifically yell out, what are they going to say now was odd. But look, it was I said it and I alluded to you before we started recording my thoughts on this, but I think the tour got incredibly lucky this morning that arguably the most, I don't know if I'd say entertaining, because I feel like I've seen more entertaining stretches of golf this year. Cam Smith's back nine at St Andrews was pretty entertaining to me, but like in terms of how busy it was, how chaotic it was at times, like that 30 to 40 minute stretch of that playoff was crazy. There was a lot going on, a lot going on. And the fact that they had that, and they had Will Zalatoris as the eventual champion, who in many respects is seemingly the Weet-Bix kid for the tour, incredibly lucky, because for a period of time there, they're staring down the barrel of Sepp Straka, Lucas Glover, kind of Andrew Putnam, Trey Mullinax. So names kind of hovering around and had been, for a period of time across the weekend to win the first round of the FedEx Cup playoffs. And we were barreling towards another example of why this stretch of the season is utter shit.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. They have got lucky at times this year, the tour, just in general, that, the good guys are kind of come out on top and the stories landed. And this was another occasion. They had a really entertaining playoff. They had, obviously a bit of drama, as you mentioned. They had a few different charges. Like Scotty played really well today. Adam Scott played really well today. That is, so there were some other storylines, but I agree, unless Will Zalatoris or Adam Scott eventually won, even Sepp Straka, I mean, I don't know, kind of wouldn't have done much for the public, I don't think. Like if you look at that top 10 there, really there's a few guys who finished T5 in Adam Scott, Ra, Morikawa, Finau, and Fitzpatrick. But
a good little group, T5.
Yeah, great little group. But other than that, there's, you've probably at least got 50% of the guys in there that are, I don't want to be rude here, but they're not that relevant on the tour, right? So,
and I think it's indicative of a broader problem with the playoffs. I say heavily in inverted commas. It's a conversation we have every year. I don't really understand why you need to manufacture drama or manufacture a stage. Like it happens naturally and organically a number of times throughout the year. You will get exciting finishes to tournaments, and the way in which it's a season, right, where throughout that season there are tournaments that mean more than others, and prize money and points are awarded accordingly. I don't know why we get to this point in the year and dictate that these three tournaments essentially, like, you wipe the slate clean and anybody now has a chance again. Like Will Zalatoris has gone above Scotty Scheffler on the FedEx Cup point standing.
Yeah,
like
he won 7,000 points.
Yeah, he broke through for his first victory today, first ever. Scotty Scheffler's won 4 times this year, including the Masters and a WGC, and is second to Will Zalatoris on that count. It's like, it doesn't make any sense. And I know I probably sound like a broken record, but I I got excited today because that was an insane finish, and that would have been an insane finish at any of the other 46 tournaments we play in the year. It wasn't exciting because it was the first round of the FedEx Cup playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, 100%. It was the, it wasn't the grandiose nature of the event, and I'm saying that in inverted commas. It was the actual grandstand finish that it came down to the 75th hole in the end, and again, the tour gets very lucky that it kind of does come down to something like that, because for a moment there it kind of looked like it might have run away with Will Zalatoris. It probably should have at times. Sepp Straka almost probably should have won it in the playoff. I mean, why he didn't go for the center of the green, I will never know. But
big nuts,
Sepp. I mean, like, I kind of respect it in a way. This is what we said about Cam Smith many times, though, right?
Like, say he makes Cam Smith look conservative.
Yeah, like you've just kind of got to pick your moments, and he didn't. But yeah, look, I don't know. This time of year doesn't do it for me. Like, even I know we move into some good fields coming up and whatnot, but like, I don't know. The stretch throughout the middle of the year where we kind of get, the Memorial, we get like Riv, like that sort of middle stretch with a couple of majors, like that gets me way more excited than the FedEx Cup playoffs do.
100%. And I think, dare I say it, and I'm loath to say it, but this stretch is the perfect example of all the people that argue that we play too much golf, because the fact that you even feel the need to create something out of nothing, to create a playoff, to double points, to get to a point at which you have a fucking net championship because someone ends up on the final tournament in these playoffs literally with a lead. They walk in with a lead. Like, that shit, like the fact that you have to build that should say to you that we have had enough for the year. Like, leave it alone. Don't put all the trinkets on it. Maybe just cut it out, because it's indicative of a broader problem that, we're exhausted by this stage of the year and we don't need this. We need something entirely different, not just a mutton dressed as lamb. Sorry, lamb dressed as mutton, however you phrase that.
Yeah, first one. Yeah.
Mutton dressed as lamb, run-of-the-mill PGA Tour tournament once again.
I think my closing point on this is, like, it's fabricated, right? If they just wanted to run another 3 tournaments and wrap up the year, great, like, do it. But don't add in, what is it? Is it 2,000 FedEx Cup points for each event or something? No, like, it's ridiculous. If Will Zalatoris now can probably finish on equal terms with Scotty Scheffler for the next 2 tournaments and finish on top of the FedEx Cup and win the FedEx Cup as the ultimate prize in golf, which is what they market it as, over a guy who's won a major, a pseudo major, and 2 other tournaments. Like, it doesn't make any sense. The fact that it needs to be fabricated should say to them, like, there is no requirement for this to continue longer than it needs to, because, and the thing is, it's such a come down after the Open Championship, right? Like, we obviously have that week after where no one really cares anyway. And then it's kind of like, there's nothing to pick us back up for it. Like, and you telling me that these 3 tournaments are more important than, like, we're giving out 6,000 points over the next 3 weeks when we've given out 3,000 for the previous, for the rest of the year. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. So that's where I get off on it.
I think it's like, it started as, we need to find a legitimate way to give more money to people. And now they are so far out over their skis about, like, the amount of things they've tried to patch onto the side of it as it builds. And it's like, why not just put that money on a few other tournaments throughout the year? Why do? And I think the most infuriating thing, and I know we'll get to it in just a moment, because there's one other thing I want to touch on from the FedEx St Jude, but the most infuriating thing is that all this effort and time and resources have been invested in, like, building this out of nothing, when literally at the same time you have arguably, in my mind, one of the most entertaining platforms on the golfing annual calendar, and that's it's the final event of the regular season, the Corn Ferry Tour.
I thought you were going to say Live Golf then.
No, not just yet.
I definitely thought that's where you were going.
we got the final event of the regular season, the Corn Ferry Tour, which you've got 25 guys shooting to be promoted. The story of the 10 or so that are around, what they refer to as the bubble, right on the 25 number. The tension, the emotion, the drama, none of it there is manufactured, because this is literally guys who are playing for their livelihoods, to put a roof over their head, for some sort of longevity and continuation of their careers. Like, you don't have to make any of it up, because it is all so real.
Agreed.
And we get great stories out of that every single year. We've had another couple this year, and we'll talk about Harrison Endicott in just a moment. But like, that is happening at the same time. So why not? Like, if anything we've shown as consumers of golf in the past 5 or 6 years, we invest in the people, in the stories, in the individuals. We don't invest in the concepts, right? And like, you have an opportunity, maybe just sit for a week, put all the attention on these 40 guys that are around the number on the Corn Ferry Tour, and have a chance to literally change their lives to secure PGA Tour status. And they just can't help but shoot themselves in the foot. Nah. People wouldn't be interested in that. Definitely be interested in what's going on over here, the FedEx St Jude. That's way more. It's way more engaging.
What I would say to that is it is unsurprising if you think that they're going to do that when they don't even do that for women's majors. Right. We can't even take a week off for the women's majors. Like, if we talk about
right over the top of that,
the golf ecosystem, right? Like, it is absurd. What else do you got from the St Jude?
I just want to talk about Cameron Smith.
Yeah.
So, like, look, well done to Will Zalatoris. Obviously, a good little group there at T5. You mentioned number of people not advancing through to next week. So that's tough luck for them. Their seasons are over. Maybe they're happy. Get a bit of a break. But I want to talk about Cameron Smith. He is continuing. He was 2 shots off the lead after 54 holes, and then woke up this morning to subsequently find himself, well, not straight away when he woke up. He still got to the course. He warmed up. He was ready to go, only to be called into the rules officials' tent and find himself 4 strokes off the lead. Now, for those that missed it, and you'd be hard-pressed if you're a halfway golf fan to have missed this story today, because it is somehow snowballed, unsurprisingly, particularly from elements of, I think, the Australian media, that our Cam is being targeted by the PGA Tour. For those that missed it, I think it was the 3rd or 4th hole in the 3rd round. He put his par 3, put his tee shot into the water left of the green, took a drop, and I think finished with a bogey, because he put his chip within 2 or 3 feet, dropped the putt, and finished with a bogey. An official overnight. So this, bearing in mind, he's done that. It's a 3rd hole, I believe. He's played the remainder of his round. He's gone in, signed his card. He's gone home, probably watching Peaky Blinders like he likes to on Netflix. An official has reviewed the footage, and I don't even think this is an official on the ground. I think this was just a PGA Tour rules official on the payroll at home, just having a look, and called it in to suggest that there was a portion of his ball on the out of bounds perimeter, so on the red line.
Yep.
The rule being your entire ball has to be inside the field of play, or the zone of play.
Yep.
So he gets called in this morning out before the round starts, gets asked a few questions. They watch the footage. He admits openly, yep, no, I remember sitting there. I definitely remember part of the ball was touching the line. My understanding of the rule was it had just a portion of the ball. So bit of a strange misunderstanding from Cam, to be honest, with the rule, but that's fine. And is docked 2 strokes, starts 4 back, and never really gets going today. What kind of a chook raffle are we running here? And by we, obviously, I don't mean you and I, because it looks significantly fucking different if you and I are running it.
Yep.
What is going on? Let me be very clear. Absolutely no problem with the penalty.
Yep.
By the letter of the law, he made a mistake.
Yeah.
Pretty strange one, to be honest, for a person of his caliber, but absolutely. But like, I cannot comprehend a world in which he does that on the third hole, completes his round, signs his card, goes to bed, comes back, is at the course for a best part of an hour warming up before he's even called into a room to discuss it.
There's a few things here. One, and the first point is an interesting one. If Cam remembers the ball being on the red line, part of the ball being on the red line, I am a little surprised that he didn't pull himself up at that point to say he's always, we know him as a very honest man and a guy who plays by the rules. I'm a little surprised that he didn't go, actually, this is technically by the letter of the law. This is out of bounds. And I don't know. I'm just saying, if this was Patrick Reed or someone else, we'd be hanging shit pretty hard on him. So anyway, that's one point, and we can deal with that later. Secondly, it's a basket case in terms of where the sport is trying to go. And if you look at how much, it's certainly not something that I think necessarily needs to be involved in sport, but sports betting, right? Like, I saw this being bandied around online today. I think Evan Priest maybe said it on Twitter. How can we allow scores to be retrospectively changed when we're encouraging, and again, not saying you and I, but the tour is actively moving towards sports betting? How can we be retrospectively be changing scores, which is manipulating the market? That just from a practicality perspective is bizarre in my mind. And for, I don't know if that rules official, we'll have to try and find out. You said it was at home, you reckon?
Don't believe they were on the ground. The one that brought it to the attention of the rules officials on the ground reviewed it or watched the footage overnight, I believe.
Which is like, at what point do you kind of, I know at what point do you kind of close out the round? It's when you sign your card and submit it. That's the end of it.
Just about to say. Yeah.
That's literally the end. Once your card's in, as far as I'm concerned, the score shouldn't and can't be changed. I don't know. Is that wrong?
Yeah, well, look, that was my understanding of the rules. And I was even listening to the head rules official of this tournament specifically, as has become custom now in situations like this. They jump on the broadcast and talk it through and kind of explain the process. And I didn't envy his job today because it wasn't an easy one to explain. No. Got a fucking rails run from the commentary team, didn't he? Goodness me. Oh, of course. That absolutely sounds exactly what should have happened. But even he says, like, oh, look, when it was brought to our attention, we decided, it was probably time to take a closer look. He even admitted that at the time they thought, might look a bit close, but we assume, because they didn't have a rules official there on the ground, we assume that the player had done the right thing. Now, Cam, again, the rules official on the broadcast reiterated, he said that he was unaware of the rule that the entire ball had to be across the line. So,
right. Disregard my first point then.
Yep. So that's apparently the conversation that was had in the rules official tent. I wasn't aware. So that's why I'm putting my hand and saying absolutely it was, because I didn't know that I was making a mistake.
Yep.
But the fact that they said that they thought it was close but just assumed and therefore didn't take a look, but then only took a look when one of their friends at home said, you should take a look. Like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
And to your point, everyone knows you get in, your scorecard is reviewed, you sign it, and you submit it. Now, you're either therefore disqualified for submitting an incorrect scorecard or tough titties.
Yeah.
Rules officials, you can't
Agreed.
just go back.
Yeah.
And,
Agreed.
And take shots off.
No.
No problem with him being punished because it had to be. It's the process.
Yeah.
Like, it is a joke. The next morning, like, what are we doing?
Yeah. I think we just need to start reviewing footage.
Shit. Oh, mate. This sort of shit is like
Bush
cannon
League
fodder for live golf.
Oh, yeah.
Like absolute cannon fodder. It's like you're kicking own goals.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And the timing. And as I said, like, I think got a little bit carried away with ourselves that our Cam is being targeted by the PGA Tour. Let's simmer.
Yeah.
But it's it's just incredible. Like as I said, chook raffle,
Yeah.
absolute RSL chook raffle.
Agreed. What do you want to talk about? Harrison Endicott?
Yeah, just briefly. So obviously we flagged the Corn Ferry Tour final tournament of the regular season. Australia's Harrison Endicott amongst the 25 players to earn their PGA Tour card. I believe he finished, I'm just scrolling, 21st in the rankings. So like he was relatively safe coming into the week. And then obviously making the cut pretty much meant it was impossible for him to drop out of 25, but he ended up finishing in 21st. The Avondale Golf Club in Sydney, I believe, turned pro in 2017 and has gone about it, I'd say, the challenging way. So he made a conscious decision to take himself outside of his comfort zone. Similar path to what Louis Dobler, ironically, is on right now through the PGA Tour Latino America. Played a couple of years there, did well enough to kind of get a few starts in the Corn Ferry Tour. Had his maiden professional win earlier this year as part of this season, a 5-stroke victory back in March, I believe it was, and earns his spot. Now, this is a guy who, and there's been some nice stories written about it. You'll find him, I think, Ev Priest, Tony Wiebeck, a bunch of people who, you know, listeners of this show are well familiar with. He writes some great stuff in Australian golf media, have written about Harrison Endicott. Difficult childhood, lost his mum to cancer at an early age, incredibly close with his father, some wonderful pictures and some vision of his dad there with him in Nebraska as part of that final round and across that tournament. Just really emotional scenes. And I always think it's nice. We often talk about, I feel like we filled the better part of 12 months of this podcast with that middle tier of Australian golfer, male or female. I wouldn't say the forgotten tier, but the tier that we have little to no concept of how hard they work simply to get a start on the best tour in the world.
Yes.
Potentially formerly the best tour in the world. Wow. But like his story is, I think, indicative of so many, albeit the finer details, and there's nuance to every story, but the themes are so reflective of many, many, many Australian golfers. And I think there's a part, we'd love to see them all get there, but there's a part that when one gets there, it's a win for us all. And I think I think we should absolutely endeavour to try and get Harrison Endicott on this show, because he strikes me as a fantastic fella. And I just want to spend a bit of time talking about him because I think his story is a wonderful story of perseverance. And I hope and think he probably has the mental fortitude, given what he's been through, to make every poster winner now that he's got a shot.
No, you've nailed it. There's nothing more that I can say that's going to add any more to that narrative, because you've done it, and in typical fashion, you've done it far more justice than I would. You are certainly the linguist of the group, so that's very well said. The only other one that I just wanted to call out very quick, he gets his PGA Tour card back again, so shout out Benny Arn. Good
friend of the show.
Good friend of the show as well.
Great friend of the show, Benny Arn. Good to see him back. Yeah. The 2019 international team member of the President's Cup. Well, yes. At this rate, he'll probably be back on it. I'm not sure there's going to be many people.
He's skinny. I mean,
goodness
that's a conversation for another time, because that is really, if it wasn't already a Mickey Mouse tournament before, it's really turning into one right now. So,
isn't it? All right. Let's turn our attention to domestic shores, Drudster. Look, you received a very gracious invitation. This was last week, was it not? I've got my timeline right.
Yep.
From our good friends, now good friends, at the PGA Tour of Australasia to attend a briefing on the launch of the schedule for the upcoming summer of golf. I think obviously, given you attended the briefing, you'll probably take most of the carriage here. But if you maybe want to start with what's the headline that you think comes out of it, and then we might go into maybe a few of the finer points.
Yeah. Well, as you said, it was very nice to obviously get an invite into the season briefing It was entitled. There was only, if my memory serves right, there was only about 6 of us actually invited. So the heavyweights of the golf media, as I would aptly put it. People who don't watch this on YouTube don't realize how like facetious we're actually being in a lot of the shit that we save just because of the facial expressions. But anyway,
really encourage people to watch it.
Yeah.
If you just listen to
you'd
the
think
audio,
that we are
you'd
knobs.
actually think we thought that about ourselves.
Yeah.
Who else was
no.
in there? Just out of curiosity, who were you sharing the platform with?
Brad Clifton was in there, which was
Yep.
great. So yeah, there's some good names. I'm struggling to recall the quality through WebEx. Oh, not biggest fan of WebEx. Wasn't great. So little tough to pick up on who was actually in there. But I do have.
And just for clarity for our listeners, whom was representing the tour?
So we had Gavin Kirkman, obviously the CEO. We had Nick Dasty, who's the tournament director, I believe. And obviously Josh Martin, who's the head of comms. So there was also, who else was in here? I don't know. I can't find the email. Jesus, our emails. Jimmy Emmanuel, I'm pretty sure, was there.
Oh, yes.
So yeah, no,
I
it was
think
good.
we should get Jimmy on for a chat.
I think
we're
so.
getting sidetracked.
So it was, it was
briefing.
very nice to obviously be invited. Josh said a few words at the start just to kind of set the scene. It was obviously, I think they'd got together and sort of discussed a few things over a couple of days, which was great, sort of a media retreat-y type setup, which was then leading into being given about 12 hours in advance. Actually, it was more than that, 24 hours in advance, the tour schedule for 2022, which was outstanding to obviously receive that. We then kind of digested it by individually very quickly as we got it. I think about maybe 30 minutes before the meeting. And then Gavin and Nick both spoke very well about the upcoming season. So that was kind of the formalities of it. It then opened up for questions. I'm going to say Jimmy's did most of the questioning, just basically from what I could kind of see through the screen. And obviously, a little bit of stray topics in terms of live golf, etc. in there.
But drive-bys for Gavin and Nick?
No, not drive-bys, but more so just cow prods, I would suggest. So,
yeah.
So I guess probably the headlines to come out of it really, obviously the return of the Australian Open is the big one in terms of the season. So I will run through it very quickly, but the return of the Aussie Open for the first time since 2019 is the biggest headline that we've got. Obviously, that increases in prize money from 1.5 million to 1.7 as well. Secondly, the return of the New Zealand Open, I would say, is the big one. That stays at 1.4 million, first time that's going to be played since 2020. And obviously, in my head, the third biggest story is the PGA Championship, obviously increasing by $1 million. Now that is naturally co-sanctioned by the DP World Tour. So there's sort of the three big headlines to come out. In terms of the actual season, what we might do is just quickly kind of touch on each little swing. So very interestingly, actually, we kick off the season over here in WA. So we finished the season mostly. Obviously, we went to the NT, but we had the WA swing. So we got the WA PGA, which stays out in Kalgoorlie, and that will kick off on the 10th to the 16th of October. And then we come to the WA Open from the 17th to the 23rd of October at WA Golf Club. So that is, I'm very excited for it to be at the WA Golf Club. I think obviously 2 years at Royal Freo was great, but to have it out at WA Golf Club, I know that the team out there, led by good friend Damien Todorovic, he does a wonderful job out there. Probably one of the best GMs going around in West Australian golf. So prize money increases 12.5 grand for that. We'll get to prize money thoughts at the very end.
Yep.
We then swing back to we have a couple of weeks off.
Little break.
Big start to the year. Give us a chance to miss it. Vic PGA at Moona Links. And then straight up to your neck of the woods at the Queensland PGA at Nudgee, which precedes obviously the Aussie PGA at Royal Queensland,
Which is interesting. That's a
yeah,
direct flip from last year. Obviously, Nudgy in the Queensland PGA was the week after. So.
Yes. I think the reason for that, the reason for that is obviously we then roll straight into the Australian Open, back down in Victoria at Vic and Kingston Heath as well. And then into the Gippsland Super 6 in December. And the sort of the front half of the season will finish on the 11th of December and then not return till the 23rd, when we then go on a pretty good run of TPS events. So we have TPS Victoria, TPS Murray River. The Vic Open in there is currently TBA for February, but doing the math, the only week that it can go is the 6th till the 12th. So that's where the Vic Open will be. TPS Sydney, TPS Hunter Valley, then over to New Zealand for their 2 events, and the New South Wales Open to finish things off, and a late March season finale, which I would hazard a guess and say is probably going to be the NT PGA. So that is the list of events for the year. Do you have any quick takeaways from that? Do you want me to give you mine first? How would you like to go about this?
Brief takeaways. Obviously, a very full schedule, which is excellent. And I think credit where it is due, as we have said a number of times now in the past 6 months. I think the manner in which the tour adapted at particularly the beginning of this year, so the second half of the most recent summer, to add events where possible was excellent. And I think they've clearly taken that attitude forward to flesh out a full season. To be fair, this is as full a season as we've seen in some time, obviously with the return, particularly the Australian Open, confirmation of the New Zealand Open. I also just want to say and reiterate probably a point that we have made previously. I think it is grossly underestimated how significant the addition of the TPS events has been. Not to suggest that in their absence this would be any less of a schedule, but the work that has gone in by a core group of incredibly passionate golfing fans who also have the connections, networks, resources to get these tournaments off the ground, I think has been incredibly important for Australian golf, and it should not be lost nor understated, the importance and value of that specific segment of the summer. So I think what it has enabled is the continuity of golf, and I think it's enabled the tour to get back to, or at least on a path back to where it needs to be, which the administration have done an excellent job in the past 12 months in particular. I'm sure a mountain of work going on behind the scenes that we aren't aware of, and it's reflective in this announcement, absolutely. And this is a hugely positive step. But I also want credit to go where it is absolutely due to the people responsible for the growing nature of the TPS, because not only do we have the events that kind of started it, we have subsequently added more. And that is a really important part of our summer, the TPS.
No, I completely agree. And, when they sort of first launched the first one, we were kind of like, geez, is this just a filler through COVID? Like, is this going to be a long-term thing? And I'm really glad that it's here. In terms of the way the schedule's laid out, I actually quite like all the TPS events being together. I think it adds sort of a bit of like a season within a season almost. There's a bit of jumping around in the front half, but it's, we're a big country. It's hard to have full swings on one side. Obviously no PGA Classic. That was put in replace of the New Zealand swing this year. So we won't have the PGA Classic. I did want to just mention the prize money. Now, I know there were a few comments about this on social media. So 6 events have increased their prize purse from when they were last played. So for the Oz Open and the NZ PGA, that was 2019, and the New Zealand Open, that was 2020. So the WA Open goes up $12,500. The Vic PGA goes up $62,500. PGA Championships up $1 million. The Aussie Open's up $200,000. The Super 6 is up $32,500. And the NZ PGA is up $125,000. of the 14 events that are locked in, obviously we don't have prize money yet for the Vic Open. Of the 14 events that are locked in, it's an average increase of 102,000 across the course of the season. Now that's obviously across 6 tournaments. So if you were to remove the $1 million PGA Championship fee, prize money, that's an increase of 33,000 across the board. So I get there's mixed feelings out there. I know we've received some messages from people who aren't particularly happy with the prize money. I mean, I would love it to be. I'd love them all to be $5 million events, but the reality is that that's not the case. So yeah, it's they're caught in between a bit of a rock and a hard place at the moment. I guess. I mean, I'd like to think that hopefully, as you know, the world returns post-COVID, whatever that looks like, that these prize purses will look to increase over the next year anyway. So yeah, I'm not. Obviously, I'd love them to be higher, but I'm not. Also, at the same time, I'm very much firmly sat in the commercial department of a sporting team and understand the realities of where things are at the moment. So yeah, just wanted to mention that on the prize money.
I think it's a bit chicken and egg, right? So we could either have no tournaments with no prize money, or we could at least have a start and have a relatively full schedule with increased prize money, albeit the great majority of which is centered around one tournament. I think it's indicative of the challenge that we find ourselves in domestically, whereby tournaments are so still heavily reliant on the support of state government contracts. And until such time as that changes, until such time as you convert the funding from state governments into funding from, whether it's organizations, companies, businesses, individuals, whatever that looks like, that's not a state government. You and I both know the incredible amount of hoops you have to jump through to draw money out of state governments, the long list of deliverables. Like, it's absolutely worth it from the perspective of having the tournament. But if any person in their right mind would much prefer to have a long-term viable commercial partner. So I think what you need, though, is you need the product. We spoke a lot about it. We spoke a lot about, and we lamented the fact, particularly through that period, probably 12 months ago, that there wasn't someone, there wasn't a white knight willing to come forward and lay their money down. And the reality is that without a product, nobody's going to do that.
That's right.
I think this is the summer, right? This is the summer to show that, okay, we've got the domestic season back to where it needs to be from a schedule perspective, from a volume of events perspective, from an opportunities perspective, provided all of those things run the way we anticipate them to, provided they are well engaged by the players, well attended by the fans. You then have something tangible that you can take to market and say, this is worth your money.
Yep.
And I think that is the juncture that we find ourselves at, is that we've got back to a point where we, hopefully by March of next year, we will have a thriving domestic scene that has the potential to free itself of the, I say this in the kindest possible way, the shackles of state government commitments of funding.
Oh, and it is incredibly hard to work through state government funding. It's very, very difficult. As you mentioned, the deliverables, the reporting, the analytics that need to be provided. It's at times you sit there and you wonder if it's even worth doing it. But corporate dollars are a lot harder to come by, particularly in this market. I know the spend is starting to turn a little bit, so I think that is encouraging for the tour and Golf Australia. And I would suggest, and I hope, that they are out in market looking for new partners. But just to piggyback off your point there, I mean, this is it is so important that us as golf fans, like the community of people who listen to this podcast each and every week, right? Like the 60,000 downloads that we've had on this show, people who are listening to it enjoy golf. And I know people live regionally, but you've got to support it. If we want prize money to increase, the things that commercial partners look at are eyeballs on TV. We've got a Fox deal, right? So we've got to be watching it, even if it's on in the background. It doesn't matter. Like it's numbers. And when there is a tour in your backyard, you've got to go. You've got to attend. I know that probably only a couple of these events are ticketed, but like get out there and get out to the free events. There's no ropes. You can do whatever you want. You can basically walk in the pockets of players. Like even when I was caddying for Dave Micheluzzi last year, I had a mate who was standing there talking to me as we were walking up the fairway. Like you cannot get that access. So I put the challenge back onto the people who listen to this show and the broader community as well to get out there and really support the tour this year in any way, shape, or form that you can, whether that's streaming online, engaging digitally, whatever it is, because it's all going to lead to more corporate dollars in the pockets of our players.
Wholeheartedly agree. Well said.
Only other couple of very, very quick things that I wanted to mention. I don't know, WAPGA out in Kalgoorlie. We're persisting with that one. I don't know what the deal is out there. There must be some reason that we continue to go out there. I'm going to get an answer on it. If we want to do regional tournaments, which we do a bunch of them, I completely agree. But Kalgoorlie is hard to get to. It's 7 hours drive. It's a very expensive flight. Bunbury is a stellar championship course that is 2 hours from Perth, and I would wholeheartedly suggest that is a very viable option for the WAPGA. Just putting my thoughts out there. And the last thing that I wanted to mention, again, disappointing, no South Australia or Tasmania on the tour. That is the only thing that I wanted to mention, given, Tasmania, bang for buck, is probably the best golfing state in the country, really, in terms of accessibility. So hopefully we can start to see that. So, I mean, there is that season finale event that's going to be there. I know there's $200,000 put in the pot for that one. I mean, we're going to be disappointed either way. If we go to the NT, we're not getting anything in South Australia or Tasmania. If we go to South Australia or Tasmania, we lose that amazing trophy. And that's as simple as it is. So anyway, that's it. That's what I had.
I think you make a fair point. It's quite interesting in Tassie and South Australia. So I'm probably more surprised and disappointed about Adelaide in particular. Like that is an exceptional golf region. And I'll get to Tassie in a minute, not taking anything away from Tassie at all. Adelaide is an exceptional golf region. The amount of quality courses in and around Adelaide, unbelievable, and like more than capable of hosting tournament golf. I think probably a little bit more capable than Tassie. And again, not taking anything away from Tassie. Tassie is like the definition of Australian destination golf, right? It's your Bandon Dunes equivalent, of America. It's that kind of West Coast region, that mystical place where you go and all your dreams country, or taking a trip up to Pine Valley. Or Pinehurst, or playing, any one of those places like that. That's in my mind what Tassie is in Australia. And I think it'd almost be strange to watch a tournament at like Barnbougle Dunes or Lost Farm. It'd be almost weird to see like actual tournament play there. That might change when 7 Mile gets off the ground. Because obviously, again, also proximity to capital city, airport, accommodation. That might be a window in. But I think Tassie's probably, comparatively to Adelaide, is probably in its infancy around its readiness for tournament golf. But yeah, Adelaide surprises me a bit because I think not only do you have an incredibly engaged and passionate community there, you've got some exceptional courses. So yeah, it's hard because you don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul. But if you're having tournaments up in Darwin and in Kalgoorlie, maybe there's a chance to take on Adelaide.
Well, I mean, it's the TPS series, right? Is where I think there is the opportunity, and there's two reasons why they probably haven't taken events there. One is, again, what we said before: state government funding is probably not there from the South Australian or Tasmanian governments. And secondly, probably more so for Tasmania, is that the courses may not be viable for hosting tournament golf in terms of the infrastructure that's required. I'm not saying that you need to have big tents and everything like that, but from a broadcast perspective, it may not be viable, particularly for Tasmania. in South Australia, it certainly is. We've seen it. Blitz Golf have a televised product in South Australia. So, look, a very informative and very open chat from Gavin and Nick, and I know Josh will probably tune into this. So thanks for giving us the invite. We really do appreciate the ability to come and listen to what the guys have got to say. They've got some really good plans. Obviously, there were a few questions around Live Golf coming to Australia, and
how were they?
Look, they were as straight bat as they could be. I mean, they've got alignment with the DP World Tour and the PGA Tour as well. Obviously, there's that great piece by Evan Priest that said basically anyone can come and play our tournaments down here, which is a great result for our tour, but an interesting one in terms of the relationship with the DP World Tour and then that strategic alliance and the banning of players and all that sort of stuff. So, there wasn't a great level of detail in that, but I'm sure more will come out as more happens on the Live Golf front. But yeah, all in all, I'm actually looking forward to this season. I know I've just said everyone needs to get out and attend their golf as much as they can. I'm going to try and get out there as best I can. It is the WA Open weekend is the weekend of my Bucks party, so I don't know. Yeah, I might try and get out there Sunday afternoon. Let me be very specific. I'll be out there in the afternoon. Won't be out there Sunday morning.
No,
so
maybe just incorporate it as part of the recovery, Sunday recovery.
I thought you were going to say incorporate it in part of the Bucks. I was going to say,
Saturday's an option. Saturday morning, maybe get out there for a few hours.
That is very true. That is actually very true. I might try and get out there at Sparrows and catch the sort of first tee.
It'd be nice.
That's a great idea.
The boys have a coffee, walk the course. Nice way to start the weekend.
I'll be out there. Don't you worry. I'll be out there. But thanks again to the tour and Golf Australia.
I echo your thanks. You mentioned the strategic alignment with the DP World Tour.
Mm-hmm.
Just want to briefly touch on something which I think we need to put on notice.
Okay.
I'm not willing to react too strongly one way or the other just yet, but what I'd describe as concerning signs, Trudes, over the weekend as it relates to our strategic partners on the DP World Tour. So you may or may not have noticed, given the context of all the other things going on in golf at present, it has slid relatively quietly under the radar. But the OWGR, the official World Golf Rankings, have made some changes to the way in which they allocate rankings points to tournaments. So this was, I think, a process and review they worked through last year, published a paper, made some changes. Those changes came into effect ahead of the weekend's tournaments. So obviously you had the FedEx St Jude, and then you had the ISPS Hender World Invitational happening at the same time on the DP World Tour. To give you some context on these changes, OWGR have made the alterations to quote-unquote remove bias from the system with changes around how the strength of each event's field is calculated. Quoting directly from the paper that they published, it says OWGR's field rating calculation has been modernized so that fields will be evaluated based on the skill level of every player in the field, rather than just those in the field among the current top 200 of the ranking. With this enhancement, minimum point levels, flagship tournaments, and home ratings are no longer needed, removing the bias that can result from their use. Additionally, all players making the cut will receive ranking points according to the points breakdown. The other primary components of the OWGR system will remain the same. So the synopsis being, under the old system, irrespective of who entered the tournament, it was only those players within the top 200 of the world ranking in those tournaments that were taken into consideration when allocating a strength of field.
Yeah.
And the strength of field determines the amount of world rankings points allocated to your tournament.
Yep.
Now what we're saying is the entire field will be reviewed as it relates to the strength of field, which obviously, if you are a tour like the DP World Tour, albeit a strategic partner of the PGA Tour, strategic partner of ours back here in Australia, you are undoubtedly the weaker tour to the PGA. Yep. So when you're full field and you're looping in guys on invitations and coming in from, Asian tours, Australasian tours, coming into your event, like inevitably, when we start to take into account everyone's rankings as opposed to just those in the top 200 in your field, that is going to have an effect. And it was palpable this week. So bear in mind, it only came into effect this week.
Mm.
The points allocated, and bear in mind also, obviously being the first round of the prestigious FedEx Cup playoffs, decent field at the FedEx.
Mm-hmm.
The FedEx Cup was awarded 68.5 points.
Mm-hmm.
The winner, world rankings wise.
Mm-hmm.
The ISPS Hender World Invitational, 8 points.
Brilliant. I think it's a good change, though. Makes a lot more sense to me, though.
Let's just say that again. 68.5 points, world rankings points awarded to the winner, Will Zalatoris, which he probably has lost complete sight of behind all his money and FedEx Cup points. 8 points awarded to the winner of this week's DP World Tour tournament. So really what I'm putting on notice here, and again, let's not overreact because there are a variety of factors, not least of which is an elevated event, the first week of the FedEx Cup playoffs, that has led to probably the large disparity in the number. My concern is, as Live Golf strengthens, as the PGA Tour doubles down, that number may not see any significant improvement for the European Tour. The European Tour, and this is the least talked about thing in this entire situation, is absolutely copping it from both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And they are the absolute victim here is the European Tour. And so my only concern, therefore, not that I don't love the European Tour, my concern is the ripple effects to us. Because our strategic alliance is wholeheartedly, yes, well, I'm sure we have a fantastic open dialogue with the PGA Tour, but our strategic alliance is with the European Tour. There's no doubt about that. So I thought it was just worth flagging. And we'll keep an eye on it. We'll keep an eye on how it progresses and how it evolves. We can't overreact to the first week, but it's concerning to say the least.
Yep. I agree with you. I think it's probably the right change, though, to actually take in the entire field. It makes total sense, right?
Yep, absolutely.
It will also have a significant impact, obviously, on the world ranking points that our tour gets for each of its events, which has an impact. The final standings at the end of the year has an impact on different categories that players can get into on the DP World Tour, Asian Tour, Japan Tour, PGA Tour, Corn Ferry, Q Schools. It affects everything. So, it is quite a seismic shift in the way that we're going to be structuring it. So, yes, one to watch, KM, as we always say. We often say that at the end of the show, one to watch.
One to watch. And then just very briefly, Drudes mentioned there was another tournament that happened over the weekend, and it was the US Women's Amateur. Not sure if he saw some photos out of Chambers Bay.
Beautiful.
Unbelievable. What a course.
Yeah.
If you didn't see any of this, look Chambers Bay up on the gram, look it up on YouTube. There's some great vision out of the tournament. What a course there, University Place in Washington. The winner, of course, was Japan's Saki Baba, I believe.
Good name.
11-9.
Yeah.
Didn't make the turn. The most comprehensive margin of victory in over 60 years in the US Women's Amateur by the Japanese Amateur. Incredible. 11-9.
Love it.
Some of our games have threatened to go that way, Drews, but I've always made the turn. So
yes.
That's an indictment on Monet Shun, who was the runner-up. The highest placed Australian was Kelsey Bennett, who made it through to the round of 16. Her match play went all the way through 21 holes before she eventually lost to Brianna Navarrosa of America. Kelsey Bennett was looking great. She was T4 through the opening stroke play round and got herself all the way to the round of 16 before being knocked out. Madison Tolshard, the other Australian who progressed significantly, she was knocked out the round before in the round of 32. So a mention to Kelsey and Madison. But Saki Baba, 11-9, just incredible.
Got Stephen Ames. She aims to. Love it.
Didn't she?
Very good. Good way to finish, KM. What else?
That's it.
Anything else?
No. I think I did flag that maybe I wanted to talk a little bit of the Law and Order
Oh,
court case that went on.
we're leaving it.
Live golf related, but I think we can leave that for
We've
now.
done
There's
we've done an
lot
hour.
of water to come under the bridge, and I feel as though we might be spending some significant time on live golf in the coming weeks if the noise is anything to go by, with maybe some announcements coming from an Australian perspective. So
Yeah.
we might leave live for this week.
We will. Maybe we'll get a lawyer on the show to give us a hand and understanding what it all means.
It's
But
not a
it is
bad
American.
idea.
It is American law though, so it might be a bit difficult.
It's,
Anyway,
yeah,
we'll have a
talk
think.
about chook raffle.
Yeah.
Goodness me,
That could be a
was,
chook
yeah,
raffle.
one of the greats, mate. It's been it's been a treat. It's been lovely to be back with you on a Monday evening. I have obviously, I've been having a pretty phenomenal career experience, but I have missed it. It's been a little hole in my week not having a chat with you and with the remainder of the people who tune into us if they're still listening an hour and 20 minutes later. So thank you for your company. Thank them for theirs. And we will be back on a semi-regular program of
Well, we hope.
activity.
Well, I was just going to
across
say
the
very
various-
quickly, if anyone's actually heard this, because what people won't know in the back end was there's some changes that have happened to our hosting platform. And for about 48 hours, actually more than that, 72 hours, I couldn't get the show to upload to Apple Podcasts. So
It's all over.
that is now resolved. For those people who had to listen to test episode, which was our intro, which stayed up there, I gave it 3 days just to make sure that it was there. Thank you for downloading that. I did get some statistics of that the other day, but yes. So if you've made it through, well done. Thanks very much for
How
listening.
many people downloaded the
I
intro?
don't know. I've deleted it now, so it's gone.
Imagine
So-
that. They probably thought, what are these idiots doing? Have they
Yeah.
forgotten to hit record?
No. So anyway, that's why you would have seen it. So thanks for listening if you've listened.
Thank you. And we shall be back in your ears next week. See you, Dreads.